Hey everyone, this is Gary Key. Welcome to episode 1, the Maiden Voyage of Fish Recon Podcast. I gotta tell you, I really love my outboard motor, and when you love something, you don't treat it like crap. I got stranded one time out on the California Delta, and I was out there for about 3 hours until I found someone to tow me to the nearest boat ramp. Not the one I launched at. Hitchhiked a ride all the way around to the boat ramp that I actually launched at to get my truck. Once I got my boat back to my mechanic and we kind of uncovered what was going on, the fuel pump, everything was kind of gummed up. It was going out, the fuel lines, and he attributed it to the constant use of ethanol fuels. He said, your motor's designed to run on gasoline, not alcohol. Oxidization, phase separation, gumming up of the fuel lines and the fuel pump and all the combustion chambers, all can be attributed to ethanol. And is there ever a good time to fork out a bunch of cash for a fuel pump replacement? If your boat's under warranty, that's great, but it's still time off the water. Most, if not all, fuel stations on the highway have ethanol-based fuel, so not many options out there when it comes to finding a different fuel to run in your boat. I found a safeguard for this. Lucas Oil Safeguard Ethanol Fuel Conditioner. It's designed to specifically combat issues associated with ethanol-based fuels. Cleans your injectors, your valve seats, the combustion chambers, all those things that I had problems with from the ethanol-based fuel, this stuff safeguards against it. And it prevents varnish and gum formation in that combustion chamber. And look, alcohol combusts differently than gasoline. And your lubricants, your engine oil lubricants were designed to protect your engine against gasoline combustion, not alcohol combustion. So this Lucas Oil Safeguard Ethanol Fuel Conditioner, it helps combat and protect your engine from the harmful effects of alcohol combustion. If you love your motor, take care of it. Protect it against the effects of ethanol-based fuels. A 5 1/4 ounce bottle of Lucas Safeguard ethanol treatment can treat up to 25 gallons of fuel. Take care of your motors, folks. Get Lucas Oil Safeguard Ethanol Fuel Conditioner and make sure you are prepared and protected.
In a world where predators lurk below the water's surface, humanity has been left searching for answers on how to catch these creatures. Now, two men set out to solve the mysteries of fishing and to share that information with you. So get ready as Gary Key and Jimmy Savoini bring you Fish Recon Podcast.
All right, welcome everybody to Fish Recon Podcast, our Maiden Voyage, episode 1. I'm Gary Key.
And I'm Jimmy Savoini.
And we've got a good show for you tonight. We're going to talk about fishing because pretty much when we're not fishing, Jimmy, that's all we talk about. We've known each other for, probably 15 years, and we've spent hours on the phone. I can't even count just talking about fishing.
Well, and it's interesting that you mentioned that because when I was thinking about it, I was thinking about where I first met you, and it was at an ISE show, I believe, in Phoenix, where we were at a show, an outdoor show. You and myself and Ranger Boats and Evan Root and some of the people that we were there, and it was fishing related. And that built into a friendship that has endured. We've been all over the country fishing together, and our families have gotten to know each other on a personal basis. And not only are you a fishing colleague of mine, but I count you as one of my very best friends. And so, this is a I call it a journey, really, into a passion that you and I share. And I really believe that we have something here, as you and I've talked about what fishing means to us and how much it just is involved in our lives from day to day. When you mentioned something to me about a podcast and how we should do this and talk about what we do and why we do it, I actually started gauging my conversations during the course of a day, during my work day. I have other jobs, you do as well, and how much fishing or talking about fishing or all the things fishing related consumed my day, and it was very significant. So it was kind of a natural thing, I think, don't you?
Yeah, I totally agree. I'm remembering back when I did meet you at the ISC show, and I think, if I remember right, you needed to borrow my boat. Something happened to your Ranger boat, and I loaned you my boat, and I think you blew my motor, right? You went to Havasu and blew my motor. I remember getting a call from you and like, hey, dude, I'm sorry, but I blew your motor.
I think I was I had a friend up there trying to fix it, patch it back together, and you didn't care because, you cared, but you only cared to the extent that you asked me if I was catching any fish or not. So, yeah, I mean, that's kind of how we got started, and here we are today, doing all kinds of fishing stuff, and not just bass fishing. I mean, yeah, probably our roots are in bass fishing, but Just once we started thinking about fishing, I really tried to jog it back to the actual very start of how fishing got started. I mean, you think back about fishing as a necessity and how primitive man, probably hunters and gatherers of old, would spend all their time out hunting and gathering and trying to gather up all this food that they needed to survive. And at some point in time, they came upon a pond or a brook or a stream somewhere, eventually caught a fish that fish and the protein and the omega fatty acids and all the good that was in one fish probably kept them from having to go hunt and gather different kinds of things and kill dangerous game that may kill them.
Yeah.
And that kind of stuff, and so the origins of fishing, they go back, who knows. I mean, it's written on a cave somewhere on a wall, but how the necessity of fishing eventually led the primitive man into actually it was fun, and it became, somewhere it morphed into the recreation that we know and love today, and all of the industries that surround fishing and all of the what fishing means to our culture, right? I mean, it's just through and through, it's woven into the fabric of who we are, and we think it's important to talk about it, right, Gary?
Yeah, I was thinking the other day as I was driving home, and I thought, not everybody loves fishing, but I feel like people fall into two categories. Either you absolutely love fishing or like fishing, or you know someone who does, right? And we all know, we have friends. You and I both have friends that don't necessarily get into the whole fishing thing, but they know someone who does. Well, obviously they know us, and we do. But I think just about how impactful fishing has been on the world. I mean, you brought up, just out of necessity, go back to ancient times and people catching fish because they needed to eat, right? You have to have fish to survive. But what about the children growing up back in that time who would go out with their fathers and fish out of necessity? Some of those children had the same bug that you and I had as children. And I think about my youngest son. And my two oldest boys, them, James and Matthew, they love fishing. But my youngest son, Benjamin, he's addicted to fishing. And he has that fire and that bug where, I can take him out fishing in the boat all day long. And we come into the docks. I'm exhausted. I'm ready to go in and, pour a glass of wine and have some dinner. And when we get back to the docks, and he's ready to grab a rod and fish off the docks, and I got to drag him in to come eat dinner. And then he comes in and eats dinner. And as soon as dinner's over, he's like, hey, can I go back to the docks and fish? And he'll fish all night. And I think back and I'm like, I was exactly like that as a child. I just remember my dad would come in from fishing, and I would stay at the dock and fish, and he would cook dinner, and he'd have to come drag me up to the trailer and say, hey, we got to eat dinner. And I'm like, okay, well, could I take my plate of food down to the dock and eat while I fish? And I didn't care what I caught. I mean, I was addicted to fishing. I could catch catfish and bass and bluegill and carp, and it just didn't matter. I was passionate about fishing. And I think, I got to imagine, even back in ancient times, the same thing happened. You had the fathers that would go out and fish and provide food for the family, but the children would be like, oh my God, this is a blast. I got to do it.
Well, eventually it became fun. I mean, so it served two purposes. Yeah. And, it's interesting you say that, because you and I probably fall wherever the fishing meter is about people that, okay, I know what fishing is and I don't care about fishing, all the way over to the passionate, you got to drag me off the water and I would fish before I would eat, before I would do anything. You and I probably hit on that end of the scale. It's interesting because I was up at a lake in the woods with some friends back in November before it got real cold, late October, I guess it was. And one of my good friends has two boys that they adopted from Guatemala. And these boys are 10 years old. And so we all went up there to just do a little bit of, just blow off a little steam. And we took the fishing poles. And of course, I was rigging everything up, and it was all about fishing for me. Well, this was just a recreational trip that we took. And my friend Ty's boys, they both love to fish. They're game to go out. They love to camp. They love the whole thing that any fourth grader would, or third grader. I mean, these kids like to make s'mores. They like to ride quads. They like to do all this stuff. And he has two boys that he adopted. And so we all went fishing, and one of his boys, Noah, it was amazing to me because that kid was intense. He never left the edge of the water. The other kids would go play. They'd throw rocks. Yeah, they were into fishing. They enjoyed it. And they wanted to fish. They wanted to catch fish. We'd hook a fish and they'd want to reel it in. But Noah never quit. He never stopped. And we had to drag him out of there. So, it's interesting that you bring that up because I think everybody falls on the scale, obviously, somewhere. But the passion, and I guess that's what leads us here to think that this is the kind of thing that just comes natural, and the passion that drives what we do. We just enjoy it. We love it. And there are those out there that it gets in you and it never leaves. And I'm probably that one as well. But yet you see it in different kids when you go out. My children love to fish, and they love to go out. My son's already caught a giant bass that he almost broke the rod trying to.
Nice.
Yeah, I mean, and they love it, and they want to fish, and they want definitely. But no, I noticed in him, and I told his dad, I said, look. Your son there has got it. He's got it, and he just didn't want to leave, and that's what. And he bugs his dad every day, all the time, because he wants to go fishing. And so I really think where that leads us is this: there's something about, no matter what level you fish or how often you fish, there's just something about a fish grabbing a hold of your line and that tug at the end of the rod that maybe releases some endorphins or does things that you can't duplicate anywhere else. And so, the necessity comes into the recreation, and now we have industries built on recreational fishing. And I think with Fish Recon, that's going to be obviously a big part of what we do. We just love to fish, and recreationally, there's a huge topic of conversation to be had there. But I think also it's going to be interesting to go on this journey, this Fish Recon journey, to talk about how fishing affects people in so many different ways, and how it is commercially, I mean, industrially, for people that call themselves quote unquote fishermen, they're woven through the fabric of our society, and they all have a story to tell. And I really think that we're going to be able to connect with people who never even knew they had connections to fishing, because of just how prominent it is, and it's always right there. So that's where the fun is, I think, in all of this, and bringing to everybody these different experiences, these different adventures in fishing that are worldwide, cultural differences. There's so many different things that exist out there.
Huge.
And so I think it's just an incredible journey, which led you and I here to do Fish Recon, because I really think that we can keep the topics are endless, the angles, the things that we can talk about, the things that we can do in fishing, the conservation aspects. I mean, you name it. We can sit here and talk for the next 10 years every single day about what fishing means and why we love it and why we hate it, frankly.
Some things you and I have talked about, some we haven't talked about, and I think both of us being fathers and having children, we take pride in the fact that our children love fishing. And we also see, obviously, things are different now than they were when you and I were children. And video games and electronics and iPhones and iPads and everything have become more dominant in our lives. And our children pick up on this. And it's hard because, my kids, they spend a lot of time on electronics, a lot of times on video games. I'm disappointed in that because one, I didn't have that when I was a kid. I spent more time outdoors. So I encourage my kids to be outdoors. And I'm happy now and thrilled to see them have that passion around fishing. And when we go down to the river to go fishing down there, they spend a lot of time on the water and they forget about electronics. And for me, that's a win-win. And, the main goal, I think, you and I have talked about multiple times, we just want to bring value to the fishing community, regardless of what type of fish you fish for. Ice fishing or saltwater fishing or spear fishing or bow fishing, whatever it is you want to do, we want to bring value. And I was thinking back, I was talking to a friend at work actually, and we took a vacation to San Diego last year. And I think I shared this story with you, but we went out there and we bought a beach house or rented a beach house for a whole week. And my plan was to do some surf fishing. And, like you and I've talked about, when you have a bug for fishing and you love fishing, you ultimately don't really care what kind of fish you're catching. You just love that art of catching a fish. And we went to the local tackle store and, said, hey, when we're going to be doing some surf fishing down here in San Diego, what kind of tips can you give me? And they gave me some valuable tips, and they rigged me up with some different baits, some bloodworms and some hooks and some weights. And we went out to the coast and we started fishing. We struggled. We really just couldn't get it put together. We didn't have the confidence. We weren't getting the bites, and it was hard to really kind of piece together.
Quick question: what is a bloodworm, sir?
Oh my God, it's a god awful worm that I think they get them out of New Jersey, out of the swamps or something, or grass, and you pick them up and they'll actually try to bite you. So I use needle nose
great.
pliers.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So I use needle nose pliers when I'm trying to hook them. But so we put this together and we really couldn't catch fish, but I'm walking down the beach and I'm trying to get my kids, and we're trying to cast out there and try to have some level of success. And I see a couple guys down there fishing, and they're catching fish. They're catching fish and we're not, which when you're a fisherman, that's the worst thing, right? You don't want to see someone else catching fish and you're not. You want to kind of pick up on it. So I walked up to him like, hey, I got my kids here and we want to catch some fish here. What are you guys doing? And they shared with me what they were doing.
Not fishing with bloodworms.
Not fishing with bloodworms, right? They were fishing with cut squid, and they showed me their setup. They literally just said, hey, here's the hooks we're using, here's the weights we're using. Without hesitation, I dropped what I was doing. I grabbed the kids. We ran to the tackle store, and I regrouped, and I got what I needed, and we came back, and we caught all kinds of fish. We caught corvina, we caught leopard sharks, we caught stingrays, and we just had a blast. And when you and I started talking about putting together this podcast, I started thinking, that is the grassroots of fishing, and that's the information that I want our listeners to have. It's great that you get information from the tackle store, and it's most likely fairly decent information, but really the root information, the good information that you need, comes from the guys that are actually on the water that you're going to fish and are actually catching fish. And we're going to have those people on our podcast, and we're going to have those people on our YouTube channel. So that's kind of my vision for this, bringing value to the fishing community, actual, tangible, usable value that families or individuals can go wherever these locations are that they want to fish and catch fish, because they're actually seeing somebody on the YouTube channel or on our podcast, listening to someone on our podcast talk about catching fish that way. And it's not someone per se tied to a tackle store. And I don't want to downplay the tackle stores, but
of course not.
If the clerk in the tackle store is not actually on the coast standing on a beach fishing, he's only giving you secondhand information. And what I want to do with this podcast,
there's valuable information there for sure. But I think also, it like you say, it's in the collective, and there's just regional. There's people. I have conversations every day. Again, it comes out of conversations with people that you have on a daily basis, and everybody's got a story to tell. Everybody's got something that they've done that you haven't, that can enhance your experience on the water. And I mean, that is why we're here to talk about just the incredible amount of information that's out there. Not just information though. I mean, and again, stories that are mixed in, entertaining stuff that happens. I mean, funny stuff about bloodworms. I mean, let's go. Can't imagine just buying a couple dozen bloodworms and then telling your kid, hey, reach in the bucket there. You say they'll bite you. Hey, yeah, I mean, that's a new one on me, bud. And I've been fishing for a long time, and I don't want to put a bloodworm on a hook. I just don't. So, there's all kinds of cool stuff that goes on, and stories, and we're going to have a lot of interesting guests, and it's my goal to, and yours as well, I'm sure, to put people on here that can tell a different kind of a story that most people haven't heard before. And entertain you as well as we go through all these kind of things that have really enhanced our lives through fishing and the things that we do with fishing.
And one of the things that I love about fishing is that there's no limitations, right? I was thinking about this driving home from work today. I was thinking, anybody can fish. I mean, my grandparents started me fishing when I was 3 years old, and my grandfather fished until the day he died. And I think about genders. It doesn't matter if you're male or female. It doesn't matter what nationality you are. And you and I, obviously being bass fishermen and tournament bass fishermen, we've seen Clay Dyer, the guy on the FLW tour with missing his legs, and here's a guy that's handicapped in fishing. So there's just really no limitations when it comes to fishing, and that's the one thing that I love about fishing, is that not only are there no limitations, but it changes people's lives. And I know you and I both know someone, you know him better than I do, someone whose life was dramatically changed by fishing.
Well, and I've got a good friend of mine who came back to fishing and was a very gifted fisherman and really loved what he did. And his life unfortunately went down a wrong path. And I actually hope to have him on later, but this is to tell you the power of fishing and the focus that it can bring to people's lives, and not only be something that people just thoroughly enjoy to do on a recreational level, but can actually change lives. And he, at a younger age, got into the drug scene and got hooked on heroin and went away from fishing, went away from something that he dearly loved to do, and was really headed probably for, well, one of two things that leads addicts to one of two places. And he would have ended up in jail, or he would have ended up dead, and came to the realization and epiphany of sorts that he decided that he really had somewhere inside of him a great passion for fishing, and that he didn't like where he was at in his life, and fishing literally pulled him off of the edge, the brink, and he decided that he was going to not let this ruin his life, the drug abuse and the addiction that he was experiencing, and got himself clean on his own because he wanted to go fish again at a competitive level. It took him a while to do that, but he is now totally 100% sober and fishing competitively. And, every day the sun comes up and he's standing on the bow of his boat and on the water, he is actually so thankful that he's come through something that was just going to end his life to something now he wakes up every day motivated to go do. And that is directly because of his passion for fishing. And it saved his life, literally. And he'll tell you that. I hope to have him on sometime to when the time's right, we can talk about where fishing has gone and how it has come to people's lives. And, now you look at the opportunities that are there. And I really believe that as I've gotten older, one of the things I love to do is mentor younger children and younger kids and show them the opportunities and the things that can happen if you have that structure in your life, for whatever it's worth. I mean, just a day's on the water enjoying fishing, and how you can get the same kind of satisfaction out of that than from doing things, whether it be a computer or a screen in your face, or much worse things like drugs and alcohol addictions.
Right.
There's a lot of things out there. Fishing can bring you all of those things. So, it all kind of ties one into the other as we sit here and talk about it. It's fun, it's great, but it's also life-changing for some. And that's why I think it's important to talk about it. I really do.
I think I forget sometimes how impactful fishing has been on my life, as a young child. And my kids remind me of it, not on purpose, but they remind me of it by the things that they get excited about. Like for me, I mean, and we go down to the river, we got a place down there, and I'll get up early in the morning. But for me anymore, to get up before the sun rises is neither here nor there, right? It's not that big a deal to me. I mean, it's pretty much, hey, if I wake up and it's still dark out and I don't feel like going back to sleep, I'll get up and I'll start loading the boat and go out fishing. Or maybe I sleep in a little bit and the sun's already up, and I'll grab a cup of coffee and then load the boat. But I've noticed that my kids are just really, really, really bent on getting up before the sun rises. And at first I was just like, okay, well, it doesn't matter. But then I started thinking back, hey, you know what? When I was a kid, I was exactly the same way. And that's what I look forward to. I wanted to be on the water, casting my rod, watching the sun come up. And there's something about nature and being out there and watching the sunrise and, hearing everything come to life. And I mean, you and I, we've spent thousands of hours on the water. There's something to be said about being on the water when nature comes to life. It just comes to life. The birds start coming out and the bugs start flying and everything's just kind of happening around you. And it's a surreal experience. And it doesn't matter what kind of fish you fish for, you experience that. If you're in Alaska and you're going out halibut fishing or salmon fishing, or you're fishing in Minnesota, wherever it is, there's a surreal experience that you have fishing.
Well, and it's interesting that you bring that up too, because I mean, as I get older and I still tournament fish, or I fish whenever, there's never a time that, and we're always on the water an hour before daylight and all that. It's the most sacred time of the day. And what I can tell you, that even if I'm not fishing and I'm going somewhere, driving somewhere, my family and I we're on vacation or we're going somewhere, always when the sun comes up right at the break of dawn. I mean, it's because of my time on the water and my time fishing that I appreciate that so much. And I guarantee you that you could pull a guy off a crab boat in Alaska or a commercial guy. Again, remember, we all call ourselves fishermen, fisher people. This is what they will all tell you, that is the best time of day. And we almost take pity on the people who don't experience that time of day because we learned that from being on the water and fishing. It was passed down to us through our dads and our moms and whoever taught us to fish, but whoever dragged our butt out there when we were kids and instilled that in us, that was something. And it still is the very best time of the day. It will always be to me, and that is because I spent so much time fishing, and we'd always watch the sun come up. Hunting, yes, too, it's the same thing. But for me, that was ingrained and endeared into me from my fishing experiences, and it still is the best time. It's the quietest. It's when everything's waking up. There's no traffic on the roads. It is the essence of our existence, those kind of days. And experiencing the sun come up that way. So yeah, I mean, it's all wrapped around what makes that such a special experience for us every time we get to do it. No matter if you're 8, 9, 10, 4, or 45, 48, or 50, 60, 70, 80, that experience right there, if none other, is one of the ones that just you can't duplicate that anywhere, no matter where you're at with a fishing rod in your hand.
I think back to as a child, and we would go on vacations sometimes to places where there was water, and my passion, all I thought about was wanting to fish that water. And a lot of times we went on vacation and I couldn't fish the water. I mean, I think about going to Disney World and going into all the rides and all the attractions, and all I would think about is I would look across Disney World, I'd see the big lake out there, and it's like, well, I want to go fishing out there.
Well,
I'd rather go there than on the rides here. Just where's the fishing pole? Why won't they let us fish there? And even sneaking into golf ponds, right? I mean, how many times have we snuck into a golf course just so we could fish a pond, right?
Well, I think you touched on it correctly with the Disneyland deal. I mean, you go to the happiest place on earth and there's water in there and you're wondering how many fish are in the water. I mean,
Exactly.
Mickey's Fun Wheel casting an image onto the water, and all you can see is maybe where there might be a bass laying in a corner somewhere. So, I mean, that's the passion that drives the sport that we love. And I agree. There's nowhere I go. And I can tell you, when I was a kid, everywhere we'd go with my dad, everywhere we'd go, is there fish in there, Dad? Is there fish in there? Hey, you think there's fish in there? Hey, what do you think's in there, Dad? It was always everything that anytime we saw water, there was questions about fish and what might be swimming around in there. So yeah,
Isn't that
and
amazing?
Disneyland's the
It's
best
just
one
amazing.
because or when I took my kids to the zoo for the first few times of their lives, and they were running around looking at elephants and zebras and everything else, snake exhibits, all the different things. And where was Daddy? Running around the lagoon looking for fish.
That's right.
It's always in the springtime.
Hey,
And
there's
I was
some
looking
big
for-
fish in the Phoenix
Yeah,
Zoo.
because they're giants in the zoo, right? And so, Dad, hey, Dad, you want to come over here and look at the giraffes? Come feed the giraffes. I'm like, well, I just saw there's a fish under this tree. Come here, let me show you that. And they couldn't drag me away from and I'm not just a kid. I'm an adult doing that stuff. So, that's what keeps us going for sure.
I actually have a hard time watching fishing shows because I find myself aching to be there and go fishing. I don't want to watch fishing. I want to go fishing. One of the things that prompted us to do this podcast is that when you and I aren't fishing, we want to talk about it. And my wife makes fun of me all the time because she's like, when you're not fishing, you're just talking about fishing. And when you get around people that want to talk about fishing, I can see that you light up with energy and excitement just to talk about fishing, and you just go on and on and on and on and on and carry on for hours talking about fishing. And I don't know what drives that passion. And we touched on it a little bit earlier about those few people out there, or many people, that have the fever. Like I said, my oldest sons, they love fishing, but my youngest son is addicted to it. He has the fever, and he's relentless with his fishing. And I know you're the same, and I'm the same. And I wonder what brought us to that point. What was it that made you, Jimmy, so addicted to fishing and so passionate about fishing? And what is it that made Gary Key so passionate about fishing? Was it the fact that you work and you can, not always, experience immediate reward. I mean, right? You and I go to work every day, and we work hours, and we get a paycheck, but we work hours, and then a week or two later we get a paycheck. In fishing, you can work literally an hour and get a reward right there. There's also the thrill of not necessarily landing the reward, right? Which is obviously, something that every fisherman experiences, the loss of a fish. But what is it that you think made you so addicted to fishing? What about it?
And it's interesting because you come down the pathway, and fishing has grown a part of my life and grown more and more, and now I'm involved in a lot of different things. And I'd walk back real quick and just talk about this little theme about when we're not fishing, we're talking about fishing. Well, a couple of weeks ago for Wild West Bass Trail, I was up at Roosevelt Lake, and I didn't qualify for the team they had a team championship up there, and it was televised, and there's lots of media around, and it's an up and coming Western circuit that's I think is only going to experience more and more growth. And we've been filming TV shows for the last couple of years with it. So they asked me to come up and do on the water interviews and be a part of it and do some of the commentary, which I was happy to do. But it was very difficult to, okay, so like you say, when you're watching a TV show, you can put yourself right in the person that's holding the fishing rod's shoes, and you every time they set the hook, you feel that. This is this base, really primal endorphin release, about catching a fish when a fish bites, and it's that very experience. So I went up to the lake, and everybody kept saying, well, because they expected me to be there as an angler, and I wasn't. I was there as helping do the commentary. And it's very funny that you say about talking about fishing. They're like, boy, it's got to be hard on you. You're not fishing. You're not competing. You're not doing it. I said, guys, once you make your peace with, or I made my peace with, I'm not going to be fishing this event, the next best thing was to be watching everybody do it, and to be on the water in my boat with a camera, with a microphone, talking about the very thing that I love to do.
Well, I say I hate watching fishing, and yet I'm the first one to turn on the TV and watch River Monsters or
isn't
the FLW.
It interesting how that is? So so to answer your question, this is what it is about for me, because I've actually thought about this quite a bit, and I give seminars. You do as well. We talk to up and coming anglers. We talk in these different forums about what drives. Well, why do you do this? I mean, what is all this? We run around with wrapped boats and different things that and this journey down the road into fishing for me, which keeps it's a journey. It really truly is. But at the heart of the journey is the very thing that keeps you coming back. And so I say that people start fishing for the wrong reasons. You either are or have some sort of a passion for fishing, or you really don't. And the people that don't, well, we still have a place for them here at Fish Recon, because we want them to at least, I think there's stories to be told and angles to even look at the analytical thinker, that they can look at fishing in ways they never have and see the impact that it may have on their lives. And that's one thing. But what keeps me fishing, what keeps me doing the work that I do to clear out my schedule and leave my family and go fish places and put a fishing rod in my hand, is the very thing that keeps you coming back. The thing that you sit down in front of the TV and go, man, that guy just caught a 12-pound steelhead. Gosh, I wish that was me. I wish that was me. And it is the tug. It is the bite. It is fooling a fish into biting a lure, and the feeling of that fish, and then fighting the fish in. The very act, the very essence of making a fish bite and reeling a fish in releases something in me that can never be duplicated anywhere else on the planet.
That's a good point. And it is.
I mean, it really boils down to that, know. And that's what keeps you going back. And then, of course, you and I, over the years, have found different ways to elicit that response, so to speak, topwater baits or whatever it is that we do when we fish to make. And they're all different bites, but it's always, and then every time you set the hook, you wonder how big it is. What's coming up? What's going to happen? So it's a different, setting the hook on a fish is the same experience technically if you lay it out linearly like that. Okay, throw the bait in, have the fish bite, set the hook, reel fish in. Okay, that is laid out in the bare bones. But every single one of those experiences is different. And wrapped into those experiences is lost fish, is broken lines, is injuries, potential. It's every time it happens, it's different. And so, I think it's that you can't duplicate that with an iPad. You can't duplicate that in your normal daily life. It is intrinsically unique to fishing.
Yep.
And I would even suggest that that's what keeps even our commercial guys fishing. The guys on Wicked Tuna that go out there every day and try to catch. Yes, they're making a living, but they are still experiencing that exact same thing that you and I experience, and it's a different thing every time. Every time those guys pull a crab pot up off the bottom of the ocean, up there off Sig Hansen's boat, you don't know what's in that thing. And you don't know what's going to happen. And yes, you're making your living doing that, but there's still a certain part of recreation. That crab pot comes up full, and those guys are that is the same release that you and I feel when a bass eats a frog.
Yep. There is a mystery element to fishing. Like you just mentioned, Sig Hansen and obviously the Deadliest Catch, and you bring up that crab pot, and you don't know what's going to be in it. And we've watched shows where they've played practical jokes on each other and, put the hood of a Chevy down there or whatever it was, the truck bed of a Ford, just to play a joke on someone. But there's an element to that really does make fishing addictive. Like you said, I mean, whether you use artificial baits, whether you use live baits. I remember as a kid, we would use live night crawlers. You get a bite on that night crawler, you don't know what that is.
That's right.
That could be a 50-pound flathead. It could be a 3-inch bluegill. You just don't know when you get that bite, and there's a thrill in that. There's a thrill in that mystery of, I just got a bite and I don't know what it is.
And here's the other part too, Gary, too, that I think is kind of touching on what drives the passion. There's no guarantee, because and we see it all the time. So I go back to the Deadliest Catch guys. Those guys are as skilled as you're ever going to find. That's the reason why there's a camera on their boat and they're making TV shows. And how many times do they haul water? How many times do they catch nothing? And how many times do pros, some of the best professionals we know, go out to a fishery and these guys make their living fishing and they get skunked? They don't catch anything and the fish win. And so what you have is no guarantees as well. So the times where we don't catch anything is almost sometimes as important as the times when we go kill it. So there's times, those times set you up. The failures set you up for success. So it kind of imitates life, right? And you go out and you fish and you don't catch anything. And boy, we get on the water and we just know exactly how we're going to crush them today. We're going to go out there. We're going to do this, A, B, C, and D. We're going to thread the needle. We're going to catch them. And there's just no way we could fail. And 7-8 hours later, we're pulling the boat onto the trailer going, what the hell just happened?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
No, the fish did not behave how they were supposed to. So what happens with that is they're animals, they're creatures. They make decisions and they bite or they don't. They know why. And so, that's part of, I think, the uniqueness of the experience that we love that we call fishing, that keeps us going back too. How'd you do today? I didn't catch anything. Well, what are you going to do tomorrow? Going to go fishing. I'm going to, So
yeah,
it's sometimes what you don't catch as much as what you do catch.
Yeah, and it's that one-on-one battle element of it too. I was thinking about that as you were talking through those intricacies of fishing and why we're addicted to it in the battle that we face. And at the end of the day, it really does come down to you and the fish. We talk about tournament fishing, and not everybody tournament fishes, and we're going to be tailoring this show to everybody who fishes, regardless of age, gender. But if you're a tournament angler, I hear tournament anglers all the time saying, well, I got beat by so-and-so. I got beat by, Billy Bob or Joe Smith or whoever it is. But really, it's not you against the other anglers. It's really you against the fish. And it's always you against the fish, regardless of whether or not you're a tournament fisherman or just a recreational angler. It's a one-on-one battle. And if you're a little kid and you're 3 years old and you drop that bobber in the water with a mealworm on it, it's you against the fish. And if you're 30 years old and you're fishing the Bassmaster Elite Series, it's you against the fish. And if you're 85 years old and you're tied up along the side of a river and you're catfishing, it's you against the fish. And I think that's one of the things that makes fishing most attractive is it is an individual thing, and yet it's a team thing. I mean, obviously you go out fishing with other folks, but when it comes down to the actual battle, it's you and the fish.
Well, and that so what we've gone through and described there is just the base element, the base passion, the us against the fish. And then, and this is why I think Fish Recon, well, we can talk about this from now until eternity. And then you throw in all of the different factors and the different experiences, and I mean worldwide, anything and everything. And I mean, we're going to draw off of some of these experiences. We're going to draw off of some of the TV shows and the personalities and the people that we know personally that bring a total different approach and a total different reasoning, a totally different thought process to the very base thing that you and I have just identified, which is why we fish, why we love to fish, and the tug is the drug, so to speak, whatever it is.
Hey, I'm going to coin that phrase. The tug is the drug. I like it.
Then you add in to the vast experiences and the humanity and the life, the life experiences that go into it. And that is where I truly believe that we have such a unique opportunity, you and I both, to bring to the world just this very wonderful thing called fishing. And it's going to be a journey through experiences, commonalities, differences. We're going to talk about times when fishing has led people to do horrible things on the water, killed people over. I mean, the fishing has encompassed basically people's lives, and that's why I think it's so interesting, because we get to talking about this tangent or that tangent or little things that have brought us to where we're at in fishing, and then bam, we're off in another spot and we're talking about this and this experience, and that experience leads us down this pathway. So it's irredefinable, and that's the one thing I think I really love about it. It's not predictable. That's in just the fishing and the experience and
yep.
Everywhere we go, the unpredictability, the non-definable surfaces that we live on in our fishing world, I believe is what keeps us coming back.
Yep. I agree, Jimmy. And with that, we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to continue on with the psyche of the fisherman and what it is about fishing that makes it so addictive. We'll be right back. I think we're just going to kind of continue our conversation on the psyche of fishermen and a little bit about sponsors, right? So we have a little sponsor spot here, and what's important to us about sponsors and giving back into the fishing community. So, Jimmy, I'm going to turn it over to you, and let's just kind of chat through that.
We want to recognize companies and entities that give back to our industry. And so for no other reason than just to try to support the people that support us, because dollars are important. I mean, let's just face it, they are. That you're going to hear us featuring from time to time different companies that we feel that these companies are actually committing hard money back to the fishing industry. And I mean, it goes from top to bottom. It goes right into corporate dollars, into sponsoring people so they can go fish and do different things on that level. It goes into high schools. It goes into colleges. It goes into youth programs. A lot of these companies that we're going to be featuring, they give back to the youth because they understand the value of fishing in youth programs. And so we want to take the opportunity when we can to recognize them, just let them know that we appreciate what they do. And so that's something that we can kind of highlight in our podcasts and some of our media givings, offerings, so to speak, the understanding that these people and these companies are giving back to the fishing community and pumping dollars into what we love to do.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up, because that's really, you and I, we've been working on this for quite a while. We've been talking through it and about what our mission is. And at the end of the day, really, our mission is to give back to the fishing community. I gave the story earlier about my trip to San Diego. I don't want, the family to go on vacation to San Diego and want to go surf fishing and not know where to go to get resources or to get information about how to catch fish off the surf. I want them to be able to come to our website or our YouTube channel or listen to one of our podcasts and get the information they need to go out and just have a good time. Have a good time as a family and actually catch some fish. And we're going to get that information from our listeners, from our followers, and those people who contribute to Fish Recon. So, yeah, I'm really glad you brought that up, because it's important that our listeners understand that you and I are doing this because, one, we love fishing, and when we're not fishing, we love to talk about fishing, but we just want to bring value to the fishing community, regardless of what kind of fish you catch.
Well, yeah, absolutely. And so Fish Recon provides that vehicle, right? So it's the mechanism that allows all of these. I really believed, and this is one of the things that's just intrigued me about the internet and the web. You know, there is such a collective intelligence out there, no matter what you want to do. I mean, look, if you have a problem that you're trying to solve, you go to the internet and you look around, and not just the internet, but a collective society's intelligence. And actually, I think down the road, I want to have one of my good friends on. He's a PhD, teaches at Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University right here in Prescott. And we talked about collective intelligence, and he's got statistics that'll just blow your mind. But so Fish Recon, to kind of refocus what I'm trying to say here, is will provide the vehicle for the collective intelligence of people worldwide who have vast fishing knowledge and from top to bottom, anything you can name, fishing techniques, tips, all the different things that the collective can provide, that we want to channel through Fish Recon, through our website, through our podcasts, through all the social media things we do. You're not going to believe what you can learn there.
You bring up a great point, the internet. And, when I made my trip to San Diego and I knew that I was going to be surf fishing, obviously I went to the tackle store, I shared that. But one of the first things I did 2 months before I went on vacation was I did a Google search. And surf fishing in San Diego, surf fishing here, surf fishing there. I read forums. I watched YouTube videos. I read every possible thing I could read. But the thing is, I put hours and hours of research into this, and the best information I got was what I got from the fishermen that I met on the beach in San Diego. And that's what we want to do with Fish Recon, is we want to gather that information, pull it together in a single resource, so that if you're a family or you're by yourself, whatever it is, and you're going to go on vacation somewhere, or you're going to go on a fishing trip somewhere, rather than spending hours on a Google search, and then after your Google search, where are you going to go? You got to go to Fish and Game and figure out what license you need and what your creel limit is. We want to pull all that together in one resource, so that you can come to fishrecon.com and you can say, hey, I'm going to go wherever it is, Lake Tahoe, or I'm going to go to the San Diego coastline. I'm going to surf fish and fish bloodworms. We're going to have that information, and the information we're going to give you is actual information from fishermen who catch fish on that body of water, wherever it may be. And that's the value that we're going to bring to the fishing community.
It'll all be valuable, and you can make your own decision on that. You can find out a myriad of different things of any experience that you're trying to come to find, and you will have at your fingertips all of the information that's available that's legitimate. I mean, because there's a lot of stuff out there that just really isn't. So that's where Gary and I will be able to filter stuff. We'll be able to look it over, and the stuff that you find is going to enhance your fishing trip, your fishing. And even if it's not a trip that's based around fishing, you'll be able to pull it up. And if you do decide to spend X amount of time of your vacation, valuable time that you don't have, fishing, then you will be able to dial it in much quicker. And so that is definitely one of the goals of Fish Recon, is to put the resources at your fingertips that will allow you to have the kind of experience that you want to have in a limited amount of time that you have on a vacation or a getaway, and not have to we'll do the research for you, I guess is what we're telling you.
I wish now, looking back, when I went on my San Diego vacation, that I would have had a resource like Fish Recon where I could just go right to the website, right to San Diego, and know exactly what I need to do, not from some tackle store owner. Again, nothing against tackle stores or the clerks that work at the tackle stores, but a YouTube video of someone actually on the beach in San Diego catching fish and showing me how to do it, where I would go in with the confidence knowing, oh, okay, hey, I've watched 10 YouTube videos, I've listened to a podcast where Gary and Jimmy on Fish Recon had someone from San Diego who does a lot of surf fishing share some of their tactics. I would have that information all in one single resource. With that, let's talk about our next show. So we've really covered quite a bit tonight, Jimmy and about the psyche of the fisherman. We've talked about sort of the grassroots of fishing, the addictive nature of fishing, the reward of fishing, how important it is to get young children into fishing. One of the things that we want to talk about in our next episode, which I'm really looking forward to talking about, is really digging into the psyche of the fisherman. And, we want to tease a little bit here about our next episode, but one of the things that fishermen are known for is embellishing.
Oh, come on.
So, the one that got away is always giant. I'm amazed at my youngest son because, he'll get a bite on his lure and he can nail down. It's almost like he's got a scale. He's got a scale built into his arm because he'll get a single bite and he'll be like, oh, I just lost a 5-pounder. And it's like, well, wait a minute. We never saw the fish and you only felt a bump. I'm not even sure that was a fish yet. And you've already got the weight nailed down to 5 pounds. So I think next episode, we're going to really dig into that. What is it?
Well, and I guess it lends itself to, how come fishermen are always called liars? Liar and fisherman are just two words that are used right. They're almost interchangeable.
They're synonyms, right?
Right. Okay. So, why is that? Well, again, I think we tapped into it when we were talking about the unknown factor. Having something grab a hold of something that you rigged on a line and put down there, you can't see it. You're not really sure what it is for a minute. And, fish stories, they're epic. And, all the way to the rhyme of the ancient mariner. I'm sure if, that was a heck of a fish story, obviously. But it is one of the things, I think it ties right into what we've identified as the heart and soul of what keeps us fishing and keeps us going back. And that is our tendencies to, and so that, you'd, like you say, dig into the psyche. You want to talk about what makes people perceive, quote unquote, differently what they thought they had on their line as to what really was on their line, and why we have such a propensity to exaggerate. Is it cultural? Is it because we exaggerate everything as human beings? Or is it endemic to the fishing experience that it lends itself to us to exaggerate because the unknown and the unseen always does? And I reference one mythological Bigfoot. How many people have seen Bigfoot? Boy, a bunch. How many have caught one? None. So, when we tap into that, and that'll be a fun episode because, I know you've exaggerated a lot. I never have, personally.
Right. Yeah. I've only exaggerated.
So I always tell the truth when hey, if I said I caught 15 pounds worth of fish in a tournament, I probably caught 14 and a half.
That's right.
So,
round up. Always round up in fishing.
Well, and why do we always round up, and why was it always giant? And and here's the thing. I can tell you every single fish going back to my earliest memory that I lost, that I never put my hands on, that how giant they were. And I will just share a story with you real quick. Back in the old days when I was 10 years old, back in the Miro, we had a little Mirocraft 12-foot boat with a little trolling motor on it. We'd take it down to the local lake here, a couple hours away from home. And it was big enough that you probably didn't need Alamo Lake, for any of you that would know locally. We were way underboated and way undermotored, but we'd go putt around the little coves, and I was throwing a motor oil ringworm back in the day when that was the thing, I guess.
Motor oil,
and I hooked a fish, and oh yeah, man, I still wish I could get these. I don't know how many fish I caught on them, millions, of course, millions,
yeah.
as we speak. And I hooked this fish, and it came up and it jumped, and legitimately it was probably 4 or 5 pounds, really. I swear to God, I told everybody I'd lost a 10-pound fish. It broke my mind. I tied a 12-year-old knot, and I still remember the eye on that thing. And I swear to God, it was as big around as a 50-cent piece. And so that gives you an idea about how big that fish actually was. It was a giant. It might have been 15, 18 pounds. I don't know, but to this day, that fish was a 10-pounder, and you can't tell me any different. So
we're gonna have a very exciting next episode. It's gonna be fun.
Oh, it'll be awesome. No, it'll be fun. It'll be a great segue into that. And, again, the stories are just there's tons of them. So
because I'm convinced, Jimmy, that it goes deeper. It goes deeper into the psyche of why we embellish, because it doesn't matter whether you lost the fish. Heck, you can even have caught the fish and have a picture of the fish, and somehow it grows. Somehow it grows over the years. I mean, I got pictures of fish, me holding up, and when I caught it, it was 4 pounds, and 10 years later, oh yeah, that was a 5-pounder I caught, back then over here, over there. So with that said, wait for our next episode. That's a wrap. You can follow us on Instagram, Fish Recon Podcast. You can check us out on Facebook, Fish Recon. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel, Fish Recon, all one word. And on that YouTube channel, we're going to have quite a bit of relevant, good information for the angler out there. We've got 4 functional areas of YouTube. One functional area is going to be how-tos, and we're going to have videos that you and I do, Jimmy, about how to. Maybe it's how to tie a knot, maybe it's how to rig a bait, maybe it's how to do a certain technique. We're also going to have user-submitted videos from around the nation about different types of techniques and tactics. We're also going to have product reviews, just an honest, hey, we not obligated to any sponsor, but just an honest product review of anything we're dealing with. We're going to have one functional area that's around fishing recipes. Obviously, a lot of people like to cook and eat fish. I am one of them. If it comes out of the water, I like to cook it and eat it. So we're going to have some recipes. And then we're also going to have one functional area that's going to be, I don't even have a name for it yet. I was going to call it Fishing Recon because, part of the name of Fishing Recon is to survey. It's sort of a military assessment or survey of the enemy or the enemy grounds. And one of the functional areas of the YouTube channel that I want to have is a Fishing Recon where we have users submit videos from various parts of the nation where they're actually on location talking about how to catch fish at that location. Stay tuned for the next episode. And that's a wrap.
I have a very particular set of skills. Skills I have acquired over a very long career. Skills that make me a nightmare for fish like you. I will look for you. I will find you. And when I do, I will catch you.
Big fish, big fish.
All the way in the bottom. All the way in the bottom.
Oh my god!
Look at that fish.